The message came at 3:47 hours, Earth Standard Time. It arrived as nothing more than a strange pattern of light and sound, bouncing off satellites and deep space receivers until it finally reached the massive listening station on the dark side of the moon. Technician O was half asleep at her console when the alert beeped. She had been on night shift for 6 hours, and nothing interesting ever happened during night shift. The universe, it seemed, preferred to stay quiet while humans slept. But not tonight! She sat up straight when she saw the readings. The signal was unlike anything in their databases. It was not human. It was not from any known satellite or probe. It came from deep space, from a direction that pointed toward the center of the galaxy. His hands trembled as she began the decoding process. The computer worked for 17 minutes before it produced a translation. When she read the words on her screen, her coffee cup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. She did not notice. She was already running to the communication room. 4,000 light-years away, the Galactic Council was dying. A species of gentle telepaths with silver skin and large dark eyes had sent the distress signal in desperation. They was under attack. An ancient enemy had returned from the void between galaxies. They called themselves the Hollow, and they consumed everything in their path. The Council had hoped to reach the closest allies, a peaceful species known for their advanced shields and defensive technology. But the signal had bounced. It had scattered, and somehow, impossibly, it had found its way to a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. A planet the Council had quarantined 200 years ago. A planet they had labeled Class 7. A planet called Earth. Admiral Park received the call in his quarters aboard the flagship Ironclad. He was 53 years old, with gray at his temples and scars on his hands from battles he rarely spoke about. He had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 30 years, waiting for the day when humanity would finally meet its galactic neighbors. He had imagined that meeting many times. He had never imagined it would begin with a scream for help. Captain met him on the bridge. She was young for her rank, only 31, but she had earned her position through skill and determination. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes were sharp as she handed him the translated message. Read it twice, 3 times. The words were simple but terrible. To any who receive this signal, we are the Galactic Council. An enemy called the Hollow has returned. They are destroying our worlds. Our fleets cannot stop them. We beg any capable species for aid. Please, we are dying. The coordinates put the source at Prime, said. Her voice was calm, but could see the tension in her shoulders. 4,000 light-years from here, deep inside quarantine space. Quarantine space, repeated. He almost smiled. It was a bitter expression. The space they locked us out of because they were afraid of us. For 2 centuries, humanity had known it was not alone in the universe. First contact had been a disaster. The Galactic Council had sent an exploration vessel to study Earth, and the crew had been horrified by what they found. Earth was a nightmare world. Its gravity was crushing compared to most inhabited planets. Its atmosphere was filled with a corrosive gas called oxygen. Its weather produced storms that could flatten cities. Its oceans were deep and cold and filled with predators. Its land was covered in venomous creatures, poisonous plants, and endless dangers. And the humans were the worst of all. They had evolved on this hellish world. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had fought wars against each other and against nature itself. They had climbed to the top of their planet's food chain through sheer stubborn refusal to die. Their bodies could heal from wounds that would kill most species. Their bones were dense and strong. Their muscles were powerful. Their immune systems could fight off infections that would devastate entire alien populations. The Council had taken one look at humanity and decided they were too dangerous to join galactic civilization. Earth was quarantined. No ships were allowed to approach. No signals were sent. Humanity was left alone, locked away like a monster in a cage. But humanity had not been idle. In 200 years, they had built a fleet. They had developed weapons. They had created engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. They had trained soldiers and pilots and engineers. They had prepared for the day when the cage would open. That day had come. Call High Command, said quietly. All admirals, all generals, we need a decision, and we need it now. The meeting took place via hologram. 27 of Earth's highest military officers appeared in the ironclad's conference room, their images flickering slightly with the strain of faster-than-light communication. Showed them the message. He explained the situation. He told them what he believed they should do. They did not mean to call us, he admitted. The Council would never ask humanity for help. They are too afraid, but they called anyway, and people are dying. General Han, commander of Earth's ground forces, was the first to speak. He was an old man, older than with a face like carved stone. They locked us away. They treated us like animals. Now they want our help. They did not ask for our help, said. That is exactly the point. They are so desperate that they sent a signal to anyone who might answer. They expected their friends. They got us instead. Admiral Shin, commander of the Second Fleet, leaned forward. She was a tall woman with cold eyes and a reputation for caution. If we answer, we violate the quarantine. We could start a war with the entire galaxy. If we do not answer, said softly, millions die, maybe billions, and we sit here safe while the galaxy burns. Silence fell over the room. It was Minister who spoke next. She was the civilian representative, the voice of Earth's government in military matters. Her hair was white and her voice was gentle, but there was steel beneath her words. 200 years, she said. We have spent 200 years wondering if we are truly the monsters they believe us to be. We have wondered what kind of species we really are. Now we have the chance to answer that question. She looked around the room, meeting each officer's eyes through the holographic connection. What do we want to be? The monsters they fear, or something else? The vote was called. One by one, the officers cast their decisions. It was unanimous. Stood and gave the order. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Set coordinates for prime. The fleet will answer. The engines hummed. The stars stretched. And 47 human warships vanished into the void, racing toward a galaxy that had tried to forget them. They were coming, and nothing would ever be the same. The fleet emerged from hyperspace like a fist punching through fabric. 47 ships appeared in the darkness of space, their hulls black and angular, their weapons already warming. They were not beautiful ships. They were not elegant or graceful. They were built for one purpose only. What? Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the ironclad and looked at the... What he saw made his stomach tighten. Prime was burning. The planet was beautiful, even in death. It was mostly ocean, with scattered islands of white sand and purple vegetation. Cities of crystal and light dotted the coastlines, but great fires burned across the surface now. Smoke rose in columns that could be seen from orbit, and above the planet the hollow had come. Their ships were massive, each one the size of a small moon. They were not made of metal or stone. They were organic, grown rather than built, with surfaces that looked like black flesh stretched over bone. They moved slowly but with terrible purpose, and wherever they went, they left only emptiness behind. The defense fleet was already broken. Small silver ships floated dead in space, their hulls torn open, their crews gone. A few survivors still fought, firing desperate shots at enemies they could not hurt, but it was hopeless. Everyone could see that. Count the enemy ships, ordered. Captain worked her console. Her face was pale, but her voice did not shake. 17 capital ships, approximately 200 smaller vessels that have maybe 30 ships still active. And us. 47. Nodded slowly. The numbers were bad. The hollow ships were enormous and the human fleet was small, but he had not come here to run away. Open a channel, he said. All frequencies, let everyone hear. The communications officer worked quickly. A light turned green. Ambassador Lee stepped forward. She was not a soldier. She was a diplomat, a speaker, a woman who had spent her life learning how to talk to people. She had never spoken to aliens before. No human had, not in 200 years. She took a deep breath and began. This is Ambassador Lee of the United Earth Fleet. We have received your distress signal. We are here to help. Forces, please stand down and allow us to engage the enemy. We mean you no harm. She finished and stepped back. Silence filled the bridge. Everyone waited. The response came in fragments, broken by static and interference. But the meaning was clear. A voice, high and musical, spoke through the speakers. The translation program struggled with the alien language, but after a moment, words appeared on the screen. Humans, no, no, this is wrong. You cannot be here. The quarantine, the council. You are not supposed to be here. You must leave. Please, please leave. Closed his eyes briefly. He had expected fear. He had prepared for it. But hearing it, hearing the raw terror in that alien voice, still hurt in ways he had not expected. "This is Admiral Park," he said, stepping forward. "I understand you are afraid. I understand what your records say about us. But look at your planet. Look at your fleet. You are dying, and we are here. We can help. Will you let us?" More silence. Then a different voice, older and more controlled. "I am Overseer of the Galactic Council. I speak for the people." The voice paused. "Admiral, your species was quarantined for good reason. Your world, your biology, your history. You are dangerous beyond measure. The Council decided long ago that contact with humans posed an unacceptable risk to galactic civilization." "I know," said simply. "I know what you think of us. I know what your archives say. Monsters, predators. We have heard all of it. Then you understand why you cannot be here. The Hollow are terrible, yes. But if we allow humans into our space, we may be trading one disaster for another." Made a sharp sound, almost a laugh. Raised a hand to silence her. "Overseer," he said, keeping his voice calm, "I will not pretend to understand your fears. I cannot imagine what it must be like to look at us and see only danger. But I can tell you this. We did not come here to conquer. We did not come here to prove anything. We came because someone sent a message asking for help. On our world, that means something." He paused, watching a hollow ship was moving toward one of the last stations. Escape pods were launching from the station, tiny dots of light fleeing into the darkness. "Make your choice, Overseer," continued. "Trust us or fear us, but make it now. Because those escape pods will reach that hollow ship in 6 minutes, and there are children on board." Did not respond. Turned to his weapons officer. "Target the hollow vessel approaching those escape pods. Prepare to fire on my command." "Admiral," said quietly, "if we fire without permission, we could start a war with the Council. If we do not fire, those children die." He looked at her. "What would you choose?" She met his eyes. After a moment, she nodded. "Weapons ready," the officer reported. Watched the hollow ship was growing closer to the escape pods. 4 minutes, 3. "Overseer," said one final time, "I am asking, please." The comm was silent. 2 minutes. 1. "Fire," said. The ironclad's main cannons roared. Twin beams of blue-white energy crossed the void and struck the hollow ship with devastating force. The alien vessel shuddered. Cracks appeared in its organic hull. A second later, the human fleet opened fire as well. 47 ships released their weapons at once. The darkness of space filled with light. Missiles streaked toward targets. Energy beams cut through the void. Kinetic rounds, moving at a fraction of light speed, slammed into hollow vessels like hammers. The hollow had never faced anything like it. Their ships were strong, designed to withstand the weapons of 1,000 conquered species. But human weapons were different. They were born from a world of violence, refined through centuries of war. They were not elegant or clean. They were brutal, efficient, deadly. The first hollow ship exploded, then a second, then a third. On the bridge of the ironclad, watched the battle unfold. His face showed no emotion, but inside he felt something he had not expected. Hope! The escape pods reached safety. The station survived, and across the system, the hollow fleet began to turn, recognizing for the first time that they faced something new. Something dangerous. Overseer's voice came through the comm again. It was shaking now, but not with fear. "Admiral," she said slowly, "I am watching your fleet fight. I am seeing things I do not understand. Your ships are destroying enemies that our weapons could not scratch." "Yes," said simply. "You saved those escape pods. You fired before you had permission. You risked everything to save strangers who feared you." "Yes." A long pause. Then, very quietly, "Why?" Thought about the question. He thought about Earth, about humanity, about all the centuries of war and pain and struggle. He thought about what it meant to be called a monster by creatures who had never met you. "Because that is who we choose to be," he said finally. "Not what your archives say, not what you fear, what we choose." The calm was silent for a long moment, then spoke again. "Admiral, the fleet will stand down. We will trust you, for now." Allowed himself a small smile. "Thank you, Overseer. Now please stay clear of the battle zone. We have work to do." He turned to his crew, his officers, the men and women who had followed him across the galaxy to fight for people who hated them. "All ships," he ordered, "full attack. Show them what humanity can do." And the fleet obeyed. The battle in orbit was only half the war. Below, on the surface of Prime, the Hollow had already landed ground forces. Their drones and hunters roamed the burning cities, killing everything they found. Marine Commander watched the planet grow larger through this window. He was a big man, broad and solid, with hands that could crush stone. He had fought in a dozen campaigns across Earth's solar system. He had never fought aliens before. None of them had. "Listen up," he said to the 30 soldiers packed into the with him. "We do not know exactly what we will find down there, but we know one thing: there are civilians in danger. Our job is simple: get them out alive." The soldiers nodded. Their faces were hard, focused. They wore heavy armor designed to let humans fight in the harshest conditions. They carried weapons that could punch through starship hulls. They were ready. Lieutenant stood near the front. She was small for a Marine, barely 160 centimeters, but she had more combat experience than soldiers twice her size. Her specialty was rescue operations. She had pulled survivors from collapsed buildings, burning vehicles, and disaster zones all over Earth. Today, she would do the same on an alien world. "Commander," she said, checking her rifle one final time, "what about will they help us?" Shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not. They are afraid of us. Can you blame them?" "No," admitted. "But it would be nice if they did not run screaming when we try to save them." A rough laugh went through the tension eased slightly. Then the ship shook, and the pilot's voice came through the speakers. "Entering atmosphere, hold on. It is going to get rough." The punched through the clouds and descended toward the capital city. From above, it looked like a jewel shattered by a hammer. Crystal towers still stood in some places, but others had fallen into rubble. Fires burned everywhere. The streets were filled with broken vehicles and bodies. The Hollow had been thorough. They landed in a plaza near the city center. The doors opened and the Marines poured out. Took point, his eyes scanning the smoke-filled streets. "Spread out," he ordered. "Teams of 6, find survivors, call in locations for extraction, and watch each other's backs." Led her team east, toward a cluster of damaged buildings. According to orbital scans, there were life signs there, many life signs. They moved fast, their armored boots crunching over broken glass and debris. The gravity on Prime was light compared to Earth, only about 70%. To the Marines, it felt almost like flying. They could run faster, jump higher, move with an ease that would have seemed impossible on there. Muttered to herself, smiling grimly. They were not wrong about that. Her team reached the building 3 minutes later. It was some kind of community center, large and open. The front wall had collapsed, and inside could see movement. Dozens of them. They were huddled together in the far corner, their silver skin dusty with ash, their large dark eyes wide with terror. They had seen the Marines approach. They thought they were about to die. "Easy," said, lowering her weapon. She held up her empty hands, trying to look as harmless as a fully armored soldier could look. "We are here to help, not hurt, help." They did not move. Some of them were shaking. A few clutched children to their chests, as if trying to shield them from the monsters at the door. One stepped forward. She was older than the others, her silver skin marked with lines of age. Her voice trembled when she spoke, but she forced the words out. "You are human, from the quarantine world." "Yes," said simply. "We came because your people sent a signal. We are here to fight the Hollow and rescue survivors." "But why?" The old shook her head, confused. "Our council locked you away. We treated you as beasts. Why would you help us?" Thought about the question. She thought about Earth, about all the times humans had fought each other, hurt each other, failed each other. She thought about the long journey here, about the fear in Overseer's voice. "Because someone needed help," she said finally. "That is enough." The old stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "There are wounded," she said. "In the back. We could not move them." "Show me." His team worked quickly. They found 17 wounded, some with broken bones, others with burns from the fires. The Marines treated them as best they could, then called for medical extraction. While they waited, a sound echoed through the ruined streets. It was not a human sound. It was not a sound. It was something else entirely. A hollow hunter! The creature appeared at the end of the street. It was huge, maybe 3 meters tall, with a body like a twisted insect and claws that dripped with something dark and wet. It moved on 6 legs, fast and silent, and its eyeless head turned toward the building where the survivors hid. "Contact," reported through her comm. "Hollow hunter 1 block east, moving to engage." She did not wait for a response. She stepped out of the building and raised her rifle. The hunter charged. Fired, the first shot hit its chest, punching through the organic armor and spraying black fluid. The second shot took out one of its legs. The third hit its head. It kept coming. The creature was only 10 meters away when pulled a grenade from her belt, armed it, and threw it directly into the wound she had made in its chest. Then she dove to the side. The explosion tore the hunter apart. Pieces of it rained down across the plaza, smoking and twitching. Picked herself up, checked for injuries, and walked back to the building. They were staring at her. The children had stopped crying. Even the old woman looked different now, her fear replaced by something like wonder. "You killed it," she whispered, "with your hands like it was nothing." "It was not nothing," said. Her voice was tired. "But it was not enough to stop us either. More hunters came. They always did. The Hollow had filled the city with their creatures, and they did not stop just because a few had been killed. Over the next 3 hours, his team fought through the streets of the capital. They killed 37 hunters. They rescued 412 civilians. They lost 2 soldiers, a man named and a woman named, who died protecting a group of children from a Hollow ambush. Their bodies were recovered. On Earth, they would be buried as heroes. They watched it all. They watched humans bleed and fight and die for people they had never met. They watched these so-called monsters carry their wounded, shield their young, and hold the line against an enemy that had been destroying their world. Slowly, something began to change. When the medical ships arrived to take the civilians to safety, the old woman approached one final time. She was crying, silver tears running down her silver cheeks. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "We were all wrong. Your people are not monsters." Looked at her, she was exhausted. Her armor was scratched and burned. She had not slept in 20 hours. But she smiled. "We can be," she admitted. "We have been sometimes, but we can also be this. It depends on what we choose." The old woman reached out and touched his armored hand. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for choosing us." Above the planet, the battle continued. But on the ground, something else was happening, something that would matter more than any number of ships destroyed or enemies killed. The galaxy was beginning to understand what humanity truly was. Not just what they could do, but what they chose to do. And that made all the difference. The battle for Prime ended 3 days after it began. The Hollow were driven back, their fleet broken, their ground forces destroyed. 17 of their massive ships had been reduced to drifting wreckage. The rest had fled into deep space. For the first time in living memory, the Hollow had been defeated. But the war was not over, and humanity's real battle was just beginning. Admiral Park received the summons 1 week after the victory. The Galactic Council demanded his presence at Axis 7, a space station at the center of neutral territory. They wanted explanations. They wanted answers. They wanted to decide what to do about the humans. "It is a trap," Captain said flatly. They were in quarters, reviewing the message for the 5th time. "They invite us to their station, surround us with their fleets, and either arrest us or destroy us." Nodded slowly. "Maybe, but what choice do we have? We could refuse. We could return to Earth. We saved their people. Let them be grateful in silence." "And then what?" Stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars gleamed cold and distant. "We go back to our quarantine. We wait another 200 years. No, if we want to be part of this galaxy, we have to face them. We have to show them who we are." Ambassador Lee entered the room without knocking. She had dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. "I will go with you," she said. "This is a diplomatic matter as much as a military one, perhaps more." Looked at her. "You understand the risk." "I understand, but someone has to speak for Earth. Someone has to make them listen." He nodded slowly. "Then we go together." The ironclad made the journey to Axis 7 alone, had ordered the rest of the fleet to remain at Prime, both to protect the recovering world and to avoid appearing threatening. One ship was less intimidating than 47. At least, that was the theory. Axis 7 was enormous, a ring of metal and crystal spinning slowly in the void. Ships from 100 species clustered around it like insects around a flower. When the ironclad appeared, every single one of them began broadcasting warnings and threats. "Human vessel, you are entering restricted space. Ship, state your intentions. Warning, any hostile action will result in immediate destruction." Snorted, "Friendly welcome," stepped to the communication console and opened a channel. Her voice was calm and clear. "This is Ambassador Lee of the United Earth Fleet. We have been summoned by the Galactic Council to answer questions about our actions at Prime. We come in peace. We request permission to dock." A long pause. Then, grudgingly, permission was granted. The council chamber was a vast dome at the heart of Axis 7. 200 species had representatives here, from creatures of crystal to beings of pure light to things that looked like walking plants. They sat in rising circles around a central platform, all of them staring down at the two humans who stood below, felt their eyes like weights on his shoulders. Fear, suspicion, hatred. Some species looked at him the way a person might look at a wild animal that had wandered into their home. But not all of them. In one section, he saw representatives. Overseer was among them, and beside her sat Ambassador, a young who had witnessed the battle firsthand. They did not look at with fear. They looked at him with something else entirely. High Arbiter spoke first. The ancient being was crystalline, a creature of living stone that had existed for thousands of years. Its voice echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. "You are Admiral Park and Ambassador Lee. You represent the species known as humans from the planet designated Class 7. "That is correct," answered. "You have violated the quarantine that was placed on your world 200 years ago. You have entered territory forbidden to your kind. You have engaged in military action without authorization. These are serious offenses against galactic law." "We saved millions of lives," said quietly. The chamber erupted in noise. A dozen species began shouting at once. Some demanded the humans be punished. Others called for their ships to be destroyed. A very few, called for calm, raised a crystalline limb, and silence fell. "You may have saved lives," the Arbiter said, "but you did so by breaking our most fundamental law. The quarantine exists for a reason. Your species is dangerous beyond measure. Your world produces creatures of nightmare. Your biology is built for violence. The Council cannot simply ignore what you are." Stepped forward. She was small compared to most of the beings in the chamber, but she did not seem small. "High Arbiter," she said, "I understand the Council's fear. I have read your records. I know what you think of us. You believe we are monsters, predators, killers. You believe that if we are allowed into galactic civilization, we will destroy it." She paused, looking around the chamber. "You are not entirely wrong. Humans can be terrible. Our history is full of war and cruelty. We have hurt each other in ways I cannot even describe. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we survived by becoming hard, dangerous, strong." "Then you admit your guilt," a crystalline counselor said. "No," shook her head. "I admit what we are capable of, but capability is not destiny. Choice matters. We chose to answer your distress signal. We chose to fight and die for people who feared us. We chose to protect children and carry wounded and hold the line when we could have turned away." She looked directly at. "You locked us away because of what we might do, but you never gave us the chance to show you what we would do. You judged us on our potential for violence and ignored our potential for good." Silence. The chamber was utterly still. Ambassador stood. The young's voice trembled, but she spoke clearly. "I was on the surface during the battle. I saw human soldiers fighting the Hollow. I saw them shield our children with their own bodies. I saw them carry our wounded through fire and smoke. I saw two of them die protecting a group of strangers they had never met. She looked around the chamber. These are not monsters. I do not know what our archives say about humans, but I know what I saw. They bled for us. They died for us. And they asked for nothing in return. Overseer rose next. The old's voice was soft, but carried through the chamber. I was the one who told Admiral to leave. I was afraid. I believed our records, but he saved those escape pods anyway. He risked a war with the entire galaxy to save children he had never seen. She paused. I was wrong about humans. We were all wrong. The chamber buzzed with murmurs. Species that had been silent began to speak. Some still called for punishment, but others were questioning, uncertain. Stepped forward. High Arbiter, I am a soldier. I do not make speeches, but I will tell you one thing. For 200 years, humanity has wondered what kind of species we really are. We have wondered if we are truly the monsters you believe us to be. This was our first chance to answer that question. He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes of crystal and light and flesh. We chose to help. We chose to protect. We chose to bleed for people who hated us. That is our answer. You can accept it or reject it, but it is the truth. The debate lasted for 7 hours. Species argued and shouted and threatened. Votes were called and rejected and called again. In the end, High Arbiter rose one final time. The Council has reached a decision. The quarantine on Earth will be reviewed. A delegation will be sent to study human civilization. If their report is favorable, humanity may be granted provisional membership in the galactic community. Felt something loosen in his chest. It was not a full victory. It was not trust, but it was a beginning. The Council also acknowledges, continued, that without human intervention, Prime would have fallen. The Hollow would have continued their advance. Millions would have died. The ancient being paused. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity our thanks. You came when no one else would. That will not be forgotten. Bowed slightly. Thank you, High Arbiter. We hope to prove worthy of your consideration. They left the chamber together and, walking through crowds of aliens who parted before them like water. Some still looked at them with fear. Others looked at them with something new. Curiosity, interest, perhaps even hope. That went better than expected, said when they returned to the ironclad. Allowed himself a small smile. It is only the beginning, but it is a good beginning. And far away, in the darkness between galaxies, the Hollow were gathering. They had been hurt, but not destroyed. They had learned to fear these new enemies, these humans, these. But they had not learned to stop. The war was coming, and humanity would have to prove itself again. 8 months passed. The galaxy changed slowly, like a great ship turning in deep water. Human ambassadors visited alien worlds for the first time. Alien scientists came to Earth, terrified and fascinated by the nightmare world that had produced such strange creatures. Trade routes opened. Relationships began to form. But the Hollow did not care about diplomacy. They came from the void between galaxies, from places so empty that even light seemed afraid to travel there. For millions of years, they had consumed everything they found. Entire civilizations had fallen before them. They had never been stopped. Until Prime. That defeat had cost them. It had hurt them. And now they wanted revenge. The attack came without warning. 10,000 hollow ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Council space, the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. They moved in a wave of darkness, heading straight for the heart of civilization. The Galactic Council responded with everything they had. Fleets from 100 species gathered to defend the core systems. Thousands of ships assembled, the combined might of the entire galaxy. It was not enough. The first battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, half the Council fleet was destroyed. The rest were retreating, damaged and broken. The Hollow continued their advance, unstoppable, inevitable. On Axis 7, Overseer watched the battle reports with trembling hands. Around her, Council representatives were panicking, arguing, screaming at each other. Some wanted to surrender. Others wanted to flee to the far edges of the galaxy. None of them had any real hope left. "It is over," a crystalline counselor said, its voice cracked with despair. The Hollow will reach the core worlds in 3 days. There is nothing that can stop them now. Closed her eyes, she thought about Prime, about the human soldiers who had fought and died for her people. She thought about Admiral, about his calm voice and steady eyes. She thought about what he had said. That is who we choose to be. There is one thing, she said quietly. The chamber fell silent. There is one thing that might stop them. She opened her eyes. The humans. The crystalline counselor made a sound of disgust. Though they have 40 ships, maybe 50, against 10,000. They had 47 ships at Prime, said. That was 8 months ago. They have been building, preparing, waiting. Waiting for what? Looked at the counselor with something like pity. For us to ask for help. The message was sent. This time it was not an accident. This time humanity was called by name. Admiral Park received the transmission aboard the ironclad. He read it twice, then called his officers to the bridge. Captain was the first to arrive. She looked at his face and understood immediately. They called, she said. It was not a question. They called. Ambassador Lee arrived next, followed by Marine Commander and Lieutenant, who had been promoted after her actions on Prime. They gathered around the central table and listened as explained the situation. 10,000 ships, said when he finished. That is a lot more than we faced last time. Yes. And the Council fleet is already broken. Yes. So we would be going in alone, against the largest enemy force in galactic history. Nodded, was silent for a moment. Then he grinned, a wide, fierce expression that showed his teeth. Sounds like fun. Laughed despite herself, shook her head, smiling. How many ships do we have? Asked. 312, answered. The fleet has grown since Prime. New ships, new weapons, new soldiers. Earth has been preparing for this moment for 200 years. 300 against 10,000, said thoughtfully. The odds are better than last time. Raised an eyebrow. We had 47 against 17 last time. Exactly. Last time they outnumbered us 3-1. This time it is only 30-1, she smiled. We are improving. The fleet launched within hours. 312 ships, the largest force Earth had ever assembled. They traveled through hyperspace in perfect formation, a wall of black steel and burning engines. On every ship, soldiers prepared for battle. They checked their weapons, tested their armor, said goodbye to friends and family through recorded messages. They knew the odds. They knew they might not survive. They went anyway. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the battle zone. Below them, the remnants of the Council fleet were scattered across space, broken and burning. Ahead, the Hollow Armada filled the void, 10,000 ships of living darkness. And beyond them, the core worlds. Billions of people, dozens of species, the heart of galactic civilization. Opened a channel to all ships. This is Admiral Park to all vessels. The galaxy has asked for our help. 8 months ago, they feared us. They called us monsters. Some of them still do, but today they need us. Today, we are the only thing standing between them and extinction. He paused, looking at the... I will not lie to you. The enemy outnumbers us. Many of us will die today. This may be the last battle we ever fight. His voice hardened. But if we fall protecting the innocent. We fall proving that humanity is not what they feared. We fall as heroes, not monsters, and that is enough. He straightened. All ships full attack. Show them what Earth can do. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved like wolves among sheep, fast and deadly and utterly without mercy. They used tactics that would have killed crews from any other species, maneuvers that relied on human endurance and reflexes and sheer stubborn refusal to die. Captain led her battle group straight into the heart of the Hollow formation, destroying enemy ships with precision strikes. Commander led boarding parties onto the largest Hollow vessels, his Marines fighting hand to claw through corridors filled with acid and fire. Lieutenant coordinated evacuation efforts for damaged Council ships, her teams pulling survivors from wreckage while the battle raged around them. An admiral commanded it all, his voice steady and calm, his orders precise. He saw the battle as a whole, moving his ships like pieces on a board, always one step ahead of the enemy. The Hollow fought back. They had numbers and they had power. Human ships began to fall, exploding in the darkness. Soldiers died, heroes fell. But they did not stop. For 12 hours, the battle continued. The Hollow lost ships by the hundred. Their command vessels were destroyed. Their coordination began to fail. And then, finally, the moment came. His team reached the central intelligence of the Hollow command ship, a massive organic brain that directed the entire fleet. He stood before it, wounded and exhausted, his armor cracked and burned. "For Earth," he said quietly, and he pressed the detonator. The explosion tore through the Hollow fleet like a wave. Without their central intelligence, the organic ships lost control. They crashed into each other, fired on allies, spiraled into planets. The vast armada that had threatened to consume the galaxy tore itself apart. When it was over, the Hollow were broken, scattered, fleeing into the void from which they had come. The humans had won. Admiral stood on the bridge of the ironclad and looked at his fleet had lost 117 ships. Thousands of soldiers had died. The cost had been terrible. But the galaxy was safe. He opened a channel to all frequencies. His voice was tired but steady. "We are humans," he said simply. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day of our evolution. It failed, and so will anything else that threatens the innocent." He paused, letting his words carry across the stars. "You called us monsters. You locked us away. And when you screamed for help into the void, we came anyway. Not because we had to, because it was right." Silence. Then, slowly, responses began to come. First from the surviving council ships, their crews cheering and crying. Then from the stations and planets that had watched the battle. Then from across the galaxy as the news spread. On Axis 7, Overseer turned to High Arbiter. Tears streamed down her face. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "it is good that the original signal reached the wrong hands." Was silent for a long moment. The ancient being looked tired, but something had changed in its crystalline eyes. "Perhaps," it said finally, "it reached exactly the right ones." Months later, the Galactic Council formally admitted humanity to galactic civilization. The quarantine was lifted forever. Earth became part of something larger, something greater. But humans never forgot who they were. They never forgot the world that had forged them, the struggles that had shaped them, the choices that had defined them. They could be monsters. They knew that. The galaxy knew that. But they chose to be something else. And that made all the difference. On Earth, in cities and villages across the planet, people looked up at the stars. They knew now that they were not alone. They knew that the universe was vast and strange and sometimes dangerous. But they also knew something else. They knew that when someone cried for help, humanity would answer. Always, no matter what. That was the promise, and they would keep it. Forever.